Welcome to Dark News.
Dark News.
Dark News.
Shit.
They'll never know what it means to have a private moment to themselves.
BBC posted their first article about Silk Road and Tor. Oh, I don't have to go to the street corner and get shot?
I think Bitcoin means 1,000 Silk Roads.
This is a show about cryptocurrencies,
Anonymity,
And uncensorship.
All right, welcome to Dark News for today. Today is July 15th in the year 2014. I'm really excited to talk to you about the latest news in darknet technologies and anonymous cryptocurrencies and all that other good stuff. And so we'll start off by looking at the dark market prices. We'll go over a couple stories and just fill you in on the latest information in these very important spaces. I think that these are critical areas that are going to really affect the future of human freedom. Of course, the show is user and listener funded, so if you enjoy the show, feel free to send us a few bits to the tip addresses. You can find those in the video descriptions for each episode, and of course, I'll throw them up on some QR codes on the screen as well. And let's start off with today's dark market prices. So these are the dark market prices for July 15th, 2014. So gold and silver, not much of a change for the last week. Lost about maybe 1% to the dollar. Similar story for Bitcoin as well, about 1.9% up for the dollar relative to Bitcoin. DarkCoin had kind of a tough week. It lost 20% relative to the dollar, and it's still up about 85% or so overall, but it sunk down to 6th place in the cryptocurrency market cap rankings. We'll take a closer look at that in just a moment. A non-coin, on the other hand, the last week has been very steady. We'll also take a closer look at the price charts for a non-coin as well, and it's sitting right at number 41 since last week it was sitting at number 40. Fedora coin continuing its slump, lost 31 spots on the rankings for cryptocurrencies down to number 126. And lost about 20% relative to the dollar, and down, the dollar has gained about 220% relative to Fedora coin since we first started tracking on the show. So rough days for Fedora coin right now. A bit of a split story for the crypto note currencies. So Bitcoin had a good week. The dollar lost 14% relative to Bitcoin and it's sitting at number 13 right now, up from number 16 last week. Monero, on the other hand, the dollar gained 15% relative to Monero, and it's still sitting at that number 17 spot. So a couple spots now separating Bitcoin and Monero. And again, as I've said before, if you're interested in just playing the markets in support of crypto technologies in general, I would definitely diversify into at least a couple of these different crypto note currencies. Now we're adding a new currency to the price charts this week. This is CloakCoin. Right now you can buy 1.83 CloakCoins with every US dollar, and it's sitting at number 20, which is a modest but not insubstantial ranking for cryptocurrencies right now. It's several $1 million in overall market cap. I would say somewhere around the mark, the 2 million mark. And lastly, these ammo prices have been very, very steady, as we'll take a look at the chart over time for these ammo prices. They've been very steady since we've been tracking it on the show, so no major movements in that regard. And just lastly here, the overall market cap for all these different cryptocurrencies and gold and silver, almost entirely determined by gold and silver themselves. The overall market cap for those lost about 1%, as we talked about for gold and silver just a bit earlier. Now, if we zoom in and look at the ammo prices in particular, you can see we have 22 LR and 9mm Luger rounds. And occasionally they go on sale, but particularly the 9mm rounds are very, very steady in terms of price. You can get about 5 rounds per dollar, and that's been the case for months now. Now, I had an interview with Jamie Nelson, who's a listener and a colleague. He has his own show called When the Bit Hits the Fan. And so he had me on for an interview yesterday. I'll link to that in the description of the video. And we talked about a whole lot of different things, but one of the things we talked about briefly was just this idea of using ammo as kind of a market indicator. And out where he lives, out in the Midwest, I guess, just about everyone has a gun that they keep in their home. Not the case where I live whatsoever. But what he said was he has actually noticed that there's been more volatility and some substantial price increases in the 22 long rifle ammo. And that seems to be supported by some of the changes that we're seeing on the charts, where it's kind of up and down and quite a bit more change over time compared to these 9mm rounds. And I do believe that the 22 LR rounds are basically the most prevalent type of ammo, probably in the world, certainly in the United States. So if we look at some of the different cryptocurrencies that we track on the show, you can see still Bitcoin is kind of moving sideways. It's this darker blue color on this chart. And we have Monero went down a little bit this week. Bitcoin went up a little bit this week. DarkCoin is still in a bit of a slump. I'm curious to see whether some of the announcements that they've made recently will impact the price over the coming weeks. We shall see. We'll talk about DarkCoin a little bit more in just a moment. Noncoin has held very steady over the last week or two. And Fedora Coin, of course, as I said before, continuing its slump downwards. And this, of course, is a logarithmic chart just to help us see kind of the movements of the different cryptocurrencies relative to each other. Now, a non-coin, as I said, had a very steady week. So I guess what we're seeing since maybe mid-June is that there was a period of a bit more volatility right around the market cap of, let's say, $650,000. And then late June into early July, we saw it jump up to closer to the $900,000 market cap. And now it's back down, but it's less volatility, decreased volatility, down to around 700,000 or so. And I don't really hear any particular news about a non-coin from week to week, so I'm not really sure what determined these prices. I'm not sure what speculators are betting on with respect to a non-coin in particular on a week-to-week basis. Now, we talked about CloakCoin before, so we just added that to the privacy-centric cryptocurrencies that we're tracking on the show. So here's a few facts about CloakCoin. Total 4.5 million CloakCoins altogether, and I believe that is a fixed number over time. Now, they had a proof of work phase, which then segued into a proof of stake based system. So the proof of work mining period took place over the course of exactly 1 week. Apparently that mining algorithm was based on X13, which is kind of X11 plus a couple other mining algorithms. And as I said, it's a privacy centric cryptocurrency. So they do have kind of I guess you could very loosely call it a white paper. It's not very formal at all, but talking about how they try to approach privacy, and it's very interesting. I really haven't wrapped my head around it quite yet, but the basic gist of it is that it's a proof of stake based cryptocurrency at this point, and so the different nodes on the network that have CloakCoin are the ones that are validating transactions, and so they've kind of taken their approach to privacy and baked that directly into the proof of stake validation of transactions. So it kind of happens all in one step. I don't understand the very details of it yet. I could imagine perhaps that maybe the newly mined coins through the proof of stake mechanism are used as part of this privacy mechanism because they don't have any history. Obviously, they're newly mined coins. So that's a possibility, but I've certainly been talking with a few different colleagues for a while now about the idea in the Bitcoin space of using mining as a mechanism for some kind of privacy implementation. Just this idea being that if I can agree with someone in some kind of like smart contract that they're going to give me their tainted coins, I'm going to give them my newly minted mined coins, then this is a potential way of mixing coins or adding greater anonymity to the blockchain record. So I'll definitely be taking a closer look into this CloakCoin mechanism whenever I can. So as they said, there was no pre-mine during the proof of work phase. There was 496 coins, I guess, per block. It stopped after 7 days, and block time target is around 60 seconds per block, so it's decently fast. And yeah, I'm not entirely sure about the other thing because I'm not really a proof of stake expert. But so here's a chart for CloakCoin of the last month. So coming into mid-June, it had a market cap of around $500,000 or so, and then a pretty steady rise since then. A few peaks and valleys there, but right now it's sitting somewhere around between $2.5 and $3 million, and it peaked out around $3.5 million in maybe June 10th or so. So if we take a look at some of the altcoins that are sitting below Litecoin, I think that there's been some interesting movements there. Next is still on top, but starting to decline a little bit. We're really seeing a steady decline since early to mid June of this year for Next, after it so triumphantly took the first position in the very end of May going into early June. DarkCoin again is still on a bit of a decline. Last week it picked up a little bit, but now it's back down again. PeerCoin moving quite laterally. Now Ripple, for whatever reason, has taken the number 4 spot from both PeerCoin and DarkCoin. So now DarkCoin's sitting at number 6, and that's sandwiched between Dogecoin and PeerCoin. Ripple is back into the number 4 spot, and I think that's very interesting. I'm not exactly sure what's going on with Ripple. The long-term prognosis was not looking good for Ripple after one of their fundamental supporters and creators kind of backed out of the company and sold his coins. But it seems to be picking up again. And let's see what else is going on. Dogecoin mostly sideways, etc. Now, if we take a look at the logarithmic chart, we can see some of this action a little bit clearer. So again, Ripple is up. And then the other thing that's going on that's quite noticeable is MadeSafe is really up in the last week, $1 million or $2 in market cap overall. And curiously, the MadeSafe cryptocurrency is actually has a higher market cap than the Mastercoin protocol that it's based on. And I think that's pretty interesting and hilarious that actually one of the derivatives that's using Mastercoin is actually more highly valued than Mastercoin itself. So I'm curious to see how that will continue to trend in the future. Blackcoin down a little bit from last week, and XC, which I guess they're now sort of rebranding as X currency, or formerly known as X11 coin, has been down in the last couple of weeks. It was coming up precipitously, and now it's down in the last couple of weeks. I haven't really seen any specific critiques of the X currency's privacy mechanism as of yet, but I'll definitely keeping a lookout for that. And if you know anything special about Xcoin and how they do the privacy stuff, or if you've seen any good write-ups, do let me know, because I'm curious about that. The last little bit that we'll talk about with respect to these altcoins, some news just came out today with regards to DarkCoin. So they just a week or two ago, they announced that they're working on a new version of DarkCoin, the next revision. And the first part of that was to do with masternodes. They have kind of a more sophisticated way of handling the masternode payouts in election process. They also announced that they were improving DarkSend in the next iteration. And just today, they announced there's going to be even a new version of DarkSend. So a week or two ago, when they said, okay, well, instead of just having one single transaction where the the master node kind of accumulates all of these different nodes together to kind of do a coin join type of operation. Last week they said they were going to split that into 2 transactions. Now, just today, they've announced that they are going to have an even more involved type of approach. It looks like, I have to take a closer look at this, but it looks like there could be anywhere between 2 and 8 different transactions involved with each DarkSend. But the general idea is that they're trying to have one part of the process where you're breaking your coins up into uniform types of denominations. Right here, they're talking about doing it in denominations of 10, 5, and 1, and so forth. I'm actually sort of recommending that they do this in a binary fashion in terms of powers of 2, because I think that will be more efficient and save on some of the transaction fees by reducing the overall size of the transactions. So that's the general idea. First phase, you break it down into these denominations, then you do the rest of the DarkSend where everyone's working with the same denominations, and so you really have a much larger crowd that you can hide amongst in the second phase. So I think it's an interesting evolution of the coin join approach. And I'd be curious to hear what other interested parties in CoinJoin have to say about that. For example, the Dark Wallet team, I'd be curious to hear what they think of this type of approach, and whether they like this idea of breaking it up into multiple stages, and whether they feel that would be a good use of funds. And then the other part of the announcement was, with respect to me in particular, the DarkSend people are going to be sending me some kind of preview code to take a look at, do kind of a code review, and just look at the anonymity approach overall. I've already started working with Evan and giving him some feedback on his technology, and I'll be doing more of that. Now, the only challenge for me is that currently this is like kind of an unfunded code review. It's an unfunded project, and I'm not bit rich enough to just kind of spend my time on whatever I feel like. So what I'll probably do is start I'll set up a DarkCoin address, and the more that people are able to donate DarkCoin to that address, that will give me more flexibility in spending more time and attention in the code review stuff. So definitely keep an eye out for that if you are an interested and invested party in the future of DarkCoin, because I think this could be quite useful to them. So that is going to do it for the dark market prices and altcoin news for today. Now, I wanted to talk about just one news item in particular that I think is very, very promising in the cryptocurrency space. So when we talk about Bitcoin, there is this challenge of, what technology, what hardware platforms are available to people when it comes to sending and receiving Bitcoins. You can always receive Bitcoins with something simple like a QR code, right? If you just have it printed out, even as a business, you could print out a bunch of QR codes on paper. You could still do Bitcoin business, but you can't send Bitcoins with a piece of paper. I guess someone could, accept a paper wallet from you, but then they still have no guarantee that you haven't made a copy of the private key and so forth. So that's not a real Bitcoin transaction, obviously. Now, in the Western world, we have smartphones that are really convenient for doing this, and then we have Bitcoin apps, and we had some good news from Apple allowing the Bitcoin apps to come back onto the store and so forth, and that's all well and good. But the question, of course, is outside of the Western world, in some of these more third world locations, which includes a very, very large percentage of the population, billions and billions of people, how are they going to do Bitcoin? Because they need Bitcoin desperately, but they don't necessarily have the latest iPhone 5S to be sending and receiving Bitcoins. So with that in mind, the question is, how can we make this stuff less expensive to them? Well, there's this news article about Mozilla and a new product they have. So Mozilla, I didn't really know this about Mozilla, but they have their own operating system that they've created called Mozilla OS. It's supposed to be kind of competitive with Android and so forth, and the emphasis, I think, is on open source and making things as free and cheap as possible and so forth. And the challenge for them, of course, is like, how can they get anyone to use their operating system? So here's their plan. They're planning to come out with, to work with some hardware manufacturers to come out with a $25 smartphone. Now, $25 is a very attractive price point. I mean, that's something that is achievable by people in the third world. It's not chump change, but it is something that a lot of people in those places could accumulate over time, especially if they can then use that smartphone to make more money off of, right? If they can use it as a way to connect to the rest of the world or just do better commerce in their own particular local area, that's really a promising proposal. And in the Western world, we have this idea of burner phones, right? So these are phones that you casually buy them, you pay in cash or whatever it is at a convenience store. Oftentimes they come with preloaded with some minutes, or where you can buy a minutes like card separately as well. And it doesn't have to be tied to your identity. It's something that you use for a while, you eventually toss out. And $25 is to the point where you could actually use this as kind of a burner phone, as opposed to, you couldn't do this. Most people wouldn't want to do that with something like a brand new iPhone. This is very interesting, so I'm just going to go through this article here. Mozilla planning to roll out a $25 smartphone by the end of the year, according to Wall Street Journal. This was just put out on June 11th. So they talk about, they have this Firefox OS, and it hasn't gotten very much attention yet. And there's already a lot of people using Android, iOS with their phones, and if they just try to directly compete with Android and iOS, like, that's a very tough, difficult proposition. So their idea is like, well, let's try to take a new segment of the market. So Android last quarter of last year, 78% of smartphone users, iOS 18%, and then the rest was BlackBerry, Windows phones, and various other things. So the $25 Mozilla smartphone that comes with Firefox OS, obviously, would be sold in emerging markets like India, Indonesia, etc. And right now, mostly you have these old school feature phones in those places. They're really cheap. They're within the price range of what people can afford there. So Mozilla's idea is, well, if we can make a damn cheap smartphone that's going to be way more capable than these feature phones, then that's going to be really competitive. So they say even if Mozilla breaks or takes a loss on the hardware, it could eventually turn into some kind of profit on software. That model has been used by Amazon Kindle and various gaming consoles. And, really this has the potential to really bring a lot of new software entrepreneurship into these emerging markets where there's relatively small number of developers that write stuff for the local languages and for their, culturally appropriate and so forth. Most of the stuff in those areas when it comes to mobile technology has been centered around SMS. Now, what could thwart Mozilla's plans? Well, infrastructure. So in order for smartphones to do what they do, they need a mobile data connection rather than just a voice connection, and rather than just an SMS connection as well. So both India and Indonesia have been working to improve their broadband infrastructure, and there's some clear demand, but they still haven't hit the kind of levels that you would see in the Western world. So if there is a lot of demand for this $25 smartphone, that could even convince the governments and the telecoms and so forth to just invest more into this infrastructure and make it a more appealing place to sell these phones. Now, here's the really cool thing to me about this, right? So you have these $25 smartphones that are going to come to these emerging markets, or at the very least, I mean, it could be like a kind of an interesting niche in the Western world as well. Now, people are paying attention to this, and those people who are trying to innovate in the Mozilla team, the Mozilla OS team, are also paying attention to other emerging payment technologies to marry their technology with. So this is a little snippet from an article talking about Amir talking some of the projects that he's been working on, talking about PayPub, which was an app that's supposed to incentivize people to become leakers of classified documents or corporate documents. Dark Market, which eventually was forked to become Open Bazaar, and then of course Dark Wallet. So the article just mentions in passing right now, when they were trying to get in touch with Amir for this article, he was actually in Paris, and they said he was in Paris because he was talking to the Mozilla people working on this $25 phone that they're trying to integrate the Dark Wallet app into the phone. And they would be able to do this because Dark Wallet, which is this privacy-centric Bitcoin wallet, is based on browser plugins. Right now it's a Chrome based browser plugin, and I know that they're eventually planning on releasing that in the Firefox, Mozilla Firefox platform as well. So it would stand to reason that it would be possible for them to integrate this into their phone, and that would just be amazing. Not only would there be a whole new generation of people able to use Bitcoin in these areas, but they would be able to use it in a highly censorship resistant fashion by using it with Dark Wallet. So that would be a really, really fantastic development, not only for the third world, but also for the Western world. The idea that you would have these cheap burner phones that you can be using anonymous eCash on, and that of course is the sort of the goal of Dark Wallet. That is just an absolutely incredible idea. And one of the compelling things about it too is if you're able to get on the phone network and without linking it to your identity, if you're able to buy one of these burner phones with cash or with whatever, with Bitcoin, I guess, if you want to, and use it for a while, toss it out, so you have this ephemeral temporary identity on the World Wide Web and on the internet and on this data network, then that really helps out quite a bit with cryptocurrency anonymity, because a lot of the problems, the challenges in this area revolve around having your real identity linked with your use of the cryptocurrency. So I think this is a really promising technology, and I'm really excited to see if it pans out. And even if it doesn't, I really hope that there's some other project that takes this idea on, because it's a very, very powerful, game-changing kind of idea. So that's really it for Dark News for today. Wanted to keep it short and sweet, and get to work on the DarkCoin stuff and some other consulting work that I'm doing. So thanks so much for watching the show. If you enjoyed, feel free to tip. You can find those in the description and in the QR codes at the beginning and end of the show. In general, if you ever have any questions that you want to have the show field that you'd like to have answered, you can send a tweet to @DarkNewsShow, and also use #DarkNews. And that's the best way of getting in touch with the show. So that will do it for July 15th. Thanks so much for watching, and have a very dark week.